Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react.
Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Sean, I know you went on a cruise recently and you had a few thoughts about some of the stuff that happened.
You know, I find it interesting, and I haven't shared this with you, so our listeners know. We're just gonna talk about whatever comes to mind for a minute. But I found it really interesting. You know, I meet a bunch of friends, and I make new friends on the cruise. My cruise buddy, Sheila, she likes to go off and do her casino thing, and I let her go out and just meet different groups. And I have no problem talking to strangers, right? That's a very common practice, I think, on a cruise. Where are you from? It's really easy to strike up conversation. Well, I think it was spring break for some, like half the world, because there were a lot of young people on this cruise.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. There's a lot of life, some ruckus, but a lot of energy. With teenagers and college kids running all over the place. What I found interesting, Kyle, is in my nightly group, which was all adults, nobody asked anything about the wheelchair. Now, I'm not suggesting they should have, but there was never a topic of conversation. And I imagine somewhere in the back of everybody's mind, there's some curiosity, right? So never brought it up. And some people would see that I stand up, no problem. I transfer to a bar stool, no problem, or a table or whatever. So in the afternoons, when I'm out by the pool or, hanging out, I would run into random younger people. And there was a couple of kids that I ran into pretty regularly, and we just got in the habit of saying, hey, talk for a brief second, then move on, right? Well, one day, I find myself at a bar with my pizza, and I'm ordering a drink, and one of the kids that I've kind of recognized throughout the week is also at the bar getting a soda for the pool. It was outside by the deck. And while we're both waiting, he just comes over and starts chatting it up. Hey, how you been? How's the cruise? And we're just talking. And I don't know, 30 or 45 seconds goes by, and he just straight up looks at me and says, so why are you in a wheelchair?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And I wasn't bothered by that. And I wonder if I wasn't bothered because I know it's coming from a place of genuine curiosity and, a 16, 17-year-old probably doesn't know what's allowed and what's not allowed, right? Or they're not worried about the difference.
You're right. Yeah.
And it just got me thinking, I wonder why that is. There's an innocence with the child, a 7, 8, 9-year-old, that probably nobody thinks twice about. But when you start getting 16, 17, 18, I wonder if there's, I don't know, I wonder if what's your take or what's your experience dealing with different age factors when it comes to talking about disability?
I love this because I was listening to the Trevor Noah podcast yesterday, and that's one I've been listening to, and it's really insightful because he and his co-host were both born in Africa. And they were talking about this very subject where in the U.S., it's common to not want to bug people, not want to bother people with that kind of stuff. And that wouldn't happen, say, in Africa. Somebody maybe would just come up to you and be like, hey, what's up with the wheelchair?
Yeah.
And I think it's a learned thing as we get older, maybe. This is my, just thinking about it, is that we learn that from our culture, just from being around. Like, you're not supposed to ask about things, whether or not it's okay, or you learn that it's not okay, I guess.
Yeah. I wonder, because I'm sure in some other context, that question may have been offensive, or, maybe I would have said, none of your business, like, get out of here, But
yeah,
I also noticed on this strip, and I feel like it's probably true in a lot of scenarios, younger as in college and high school, higher teens, high school age for sure, they tend to be a little more sensitive to holding the door or offering, hey, do you want me to carry that? Things that, surprisingly, not too many grown adults who have been around for 40, 50, 60 years do. And I'm not saying none do. I just felt like it's more frequent that a younger person is offering me help than a middle-aged or above is. And I wonder why that is.
That's an interesting observation, because I can think to myself, like, I probably agree with that, and I could see that happening. And I don't know if it's the same type of thing where it's like people are reluctant to get involved, even if it's just as simple as opening a door for somebody. Like, that, logically, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
But, people just are reluctant to get involved, I guess. I don't know. And kids haven't really learned that.
There's no fear there, maybe. Or a level of confidence that doesn't matter how somebody might respond or be offended. I don't know. I just found it interesting.
Do you think it's like more caring? I mean,
well,
less jaded, maybe?
Yeah, probably less jaded. Because I do think there are plenty of people my age and above that do care, but they probably have had experiences that tell them to mind their own business. Whereas maybe a 17-year-old hasn't really dealt with that or faced those kind of circumstances. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's an interesting observation.
Yep. All right, Sean, so let's get into our interview. Our friend Matt is the Director of Business Development and Patient Advocacy for BioNews. BioNews is devoted to engagement and outreach for rare disease. At work, he provides information to medical communities, advocates, and the general public, and he brings members of the rare disease community together. We're going to dig a little bit into why he does this stuff and why he thinks it's important to serve this community. And then we're also going to talk about two of the big resources that he enabled recently for the community. Enjoy our conversation with Matt. Matt Lafleur, welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Actually, this is not your first time on the show, is it?
It's maybe my second time, but always a pleasure, man.
We're so glad to have you.
I feel like it's the fourth or fifth time.
I'm the third one of the Two Disabled Dudes.
Yeah, I wonder if our beginning era has anything to do with why I think you've been on the show a ton.
Maybe so. I used to do a lot of stuff for y'all in the background, so glad to be in the foreground.
Matt, you do a lot in the rare disease community, and you're a writer, and your voice is heard a lot through your writing. That's one of the reasons that we have you on today, is because you're such a big voice, and we wanted to hear from you why do you do what you do? And why do you find it important for you to be a voice in the rare disease community?
It's an honor that come from you because you both are a pivotal voice in the rare disease world. So I'm honored to just be included with y'all. But to your question, why do I find that it's a big deal to be a voice in the community? Because for a long time, FA was just a factor for me. Friedrich's was just something I had to deal with, something that was slowing down my life and making things more difficult for me. And that was very isolated. I thought I was on my own. I had my sister, but besides her, we were the only two people I knew of with FA or with any rare diseases.
Wow.
So it took me a while, but being connected to Farah and realizing that was really a gateway for me to open up and realize that, hey, I am not the only one. I thought it was, oh, poor Matt, he has a lot to deal with, but I realized I'm just one of thousands of others. And as part of that community, I want to do whatever I can do to prove my worth, to make it easier for other people to get by and to survive. Because it is so challenging, and I'm not saying anything that you guys are unfamiliar with. It's not simple every day waking up with the brain disease. Makes life a lot more complicated than you wish were. But that isn't the end of the story. That doesn't mean that you are sentenced to a devastating life. That can only be an impetus for growth and for you to do more with your life and what was handed to you.
For sure.
And I am grateful to be in a spot where I can share that and let people see that, hey, this sucks. I'm not sugarcoating FA or any rare disease at all because it's devastating. And a lot of people have it really difficult, really hard. But I want people to know that that isn't the end of what they're suffering with. That isn't the end of the story, that there is more that they can do. So
Yeah.
I find myself thrown into that spot, but while I'm here, I'm gonna play those cards.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, before we get into some of the tools that you have available to help others navigate their journey, can you tell our listeners a little bit about you? You mentioned having FA. Where do you live? How, maybe age range, if you want to give it to us, or when you were diagnosed. Give us a little glimpse of who you are before we get into the details of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I was born into a family that had never heard of the words Friedreich Ataxia. That was something not on our radar at all.
Sure.
When I became 9 years old, I guess, I noticed in sports and stuff, I was kind of getting behind my peers, and the coaches and everything started to notice that I had a little gait in my walk. My gait was a little off, but it was just so slight that my parents didn't even notice. They brushed it off. They said, "Oh, that's just the way he walks." But the doctors or the coaches said, "No, I think it's a little more than that." So I went to a podiatrist. They were checking me out. They said, "Its gait is a little off. It might be neurological, so I'm going to recommend you to another doctor." So that started my journey, trying to get a diagnosis, and that wasn't fun. It was about a year-long process, and I was still a kid, I wanted to get back to school and hanging out with my friends and stuff. So I was finally diagnosed, and they told me the words Friedreich's ataxia, but I didn't know anything about that. That was foreign to me, so didn't matter, didn't register to me. I just went back on, tried to get back to my life where it was, picking up But a few years later, I started having difficulties running and stuff. So I dropped out of every sport. Then in high school, it became difficult to walk. So I finally decided, hey, you know what? I heard this word, Friedreich's Ataxia. I never read anything about it. So I decided to look it up on my own. And that was a mistake for a kid.
Yeah.
Because it was really devastating. It was really, there wasn't an article by a handsome guy with that pay, talking about life with it. They were just, a stoic, encyclopedic article about it. And it said FA is a progressive disease and it typically leaves people with FA in a wheelchair by the end of their teenage years. And that was shocking to me, dude. Figured that maybe I'd walk funding the rest of my life, or there would be a surgery or a medicine state. By learning that Friedrich's was untreatable and there wasn't, anything I could do about it and yet except watch the progression, that was completely devastating. That killed every dream I had, pretty much. So, getting back to my life in high school, I was just kind of sullen, kind of introverted, and didn't do much. Kind of dug my nose into books, so I did well at things like studying and stuff like that. Went on to college, used a wheelchair for the first time. Doing well at school, graduated cum laude and all that. And then with the grad school, graduated summa cum laude. And then after that, I thought, man, it's time. So I started looking for others with Friedrich's ataxia. And found out there was this ride in Dallas, which is kind of nearby. So decided I was going to do that. And I reached out to the spokesman of that ride and got an email back, and I didn't expect that. And got talking to that dude, and we became good friends. And that was kind of the impetus for me to get involved in the rare disease community. So
That's awesome. Well, and you were writing for another blog at the time, right? Before you started writing about rare disease, you were sort of writing about other things. Why do you write, I guess?
that's a super interesting question, and I think that writing is a good way for me to get my voice across. I never was very a loud person. I wasn't somebody who was very hey, gather around and listen to me, listen to what I have to say. That was just never me. But if I can put my thoughts down and get it out there to a lot of people, then it's so powerful for me, so invigorating, I guess, because I never thought that was an avenue for me. But like you said, I was writing for a blog called Sick Pilgrim. So shout out to them. It was a really great blog. I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed that a lot. I kept infusing that with Friedreich's ataxia in my life with the rare disease. So eventually that was a big thing I was known for in my blogs over there. I would talk about my life with a rare disease. So when my next project came up, when Friedrich's Ataxia News was looking for a columnist, I raised my hand right away and I said, yeah, I'll do that.
And then that position as a columnist turned into a position as a community. What's your role there at Bio News?
I have been all over the place over there. So I was there for 2 years as a columnist, a contractor, and I got to know people in the rare disease community outside the FA world. I fell in love with that, bro. I thought that was so cool and so eye-opening for me to see that, man, I am definitely not alone. So I begged to be hired on full-time with them, and eventually they relented. Oh, so I've been
Nice.
involved in a bunch of different areas. At first, I was helping to manage the colonists. Then I took more of an HR role in the life of the company, and now I'm working in the sales division. So I'm bringing services and products that help the disabled community. Um, not so much pharmaceutical because that of course helps, but that was our primary target for a long time. But now we're looking into products and services because you and Sean and I all know that medicines are fantastic, but that's not the only thing that can help the rare disease community life.
Right. So, Matt, your columns reach a lot of people, and your writing was recognized, and your story was recognized, and you got invited to be part of a children's book development group or something. Am I getting all this right?
Somewhat, but okay. It starts with you, bro. Like that story. So I think it was 2018 when I got a package in the mail for something I wasn't expecting, and it was from Kyle Bryant, and it was a copy of a children's book. It's called "What Do You Do with an Idea?"
Oh, yeah.
And I was not expecting that at all. I was like, a children's book? Why would you send me that?
It's my favorite book.
I read it and I thought, wow, this is ideal. This is so powerful. It's written for kids to get it, but it's meaningful enough for adults to look at it and get a lot of encouragement and ideas from it. And that's where I got my idea. I thought, man, I wonder if anything like this is written for Friedreich's Ataxia patients. And I looked it up and no, there wasn't any at the time for FA patients. And I thought, man, kids like me, when they were diagnosed, they have nowhere to turn, no one to look to. But if I can write a children's book and maybe infuse it with a lot of messages that I've learned since then, since being a child, I think that would help a lot. So I took a leap and decided to write it. That's what I did with my idea. And I looked locally, and there was a local children's book writers group. So I joined that and developed a draft with their help. They helped me hone it and, get it pristine. And finally in 2020, I had a draft of a children's book. And that was great. But I kind of put it on the shelf. I said, all right, whenever it's the right time, it'll come out. So just didn't think about it for a while. Fast forward, and I was working at BioNews. One of my jobs was to interview the new people coming on board. So I interviewed this guy, Rich Pulin in Thailand. His daughter has a very rare disease called AADC deficiency. And we just got to be good friends after that one interview phone call. And he was talking to me about how he had written a children's book for his daughter dealing with AADC deficiency. And he wanted to make it a series and cover more rare diseases. And he said, so just let me know if you come across anybody with the story. I said, dude, what happens?
Yeah. So you guys use your story, and you took your book that you developed in the group and used it for this one. And tell us the name of the book.
Yeah, it's called Professor Hong or Friedrich's Ataxia. That is his world of story because first one was Professor Hong was ADC deficiency. So Professor Hong is his creation, and I'm so grateful for that. I didn't know this, so y'all might. Hong means red in Chinese, in Mandarin. So he's a red panda, which is one of the rarest animals in the world. He explains some things about Friedrichs and what that is and what it came from. And yeah, so the Professor Hong part is we work together on that, me and Rich. But the gist of the story is, the one I wrote.
Wow. And
That's awesome.
that book came out recently, right?
Right. It was released in January.
Of 2025.
Yeah.
Exciting.
So I imagine there's quite a few people that have purchased that book and read it. Have you gotten any feedback from any of the readers? Maybe somebody you didn't even know, or how does that go? Have people reached out to you and told you how the book is, how they interpret it in their life?
Dude, it's really touching. I don't get I'm not overloaded with the responses from the book. It's a rare disease. I don't debate that.
Right.
But the people who need it seem to have found it in a lot of cases, and that means so much to me. So I see pictures of little kids in my book. The dude is moving.
Yeah.
Like this little guy who was just diagnosed that day. He has my book and he loves my book.
Oh, that's awesome.
So for that, it's fantastic, dude. I get reviews of the book from different parts of the world, not many, but a few, and it's such a thing of pride.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we're gonna put the book in a link in the show notes so anyone can go on there and check it out. Super unique, super cool that FA is depicted in a children's book in terms that children can understand. Not only Sean can understand it, but a 10-year-old could too.
For sure.
Matt, along the lines of being a voice for the rare disease community, you had an article, a paid post by Biogen in the New York Times recently. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The New York Times, that was a dream, man, because I remember when I was young, when I was in high school, being thrilled when I got in the local newspaper. That was a big deal. And, I appeared in the country's local newspaper, so that's huge. But it's just amazing to be part of the story, I think that FA is getting a lot more attention, definitely, than it was at the time of my diagnosis. So to be a part of that chorus, to be part of knowing that my voice matters along with both of you in this podcast, along with Fiona Coley and her work on the comedy stage. It's just so moving that everybody is speaking up and FA is becoming more known. So I'm so grateful for that. And back to the New York Times, it's really a dream. I never thought I'd be there, and they even made drawings of me.
Oh, yeah.
That's really
cool.
So it's, I don't know, it's just something I never would have thought of. It's been a neat little pivot to see FA as not the thing holding me back, but the thing that's really garnering me to move forward. I won't say that I'm grateful for FA at all, because FA sucks, but FA is a tool that I can use to overcome it and to speak on behalf of it. I'm grateful for that.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think being a voice for the rare disease community, and especially the FA community, it's important to show our vulnerabilities at times, and I'm not very good at it, and I think it's sometimes it can be a hard thing to do. What are some of the challenges, Matt, that you encounter in your life, and how do you depict those in your writing?
So it's a hard line I find to write about and to express, because I try to be a voice of hope and of overcoming, but at the same time, it can be heartbreaking. It can be really difficult, especially for some people who experience real lows of FA, lower than I do. So I want to be very respectful of that and let them know that, hey, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but being in the tunnel sucks. And I feel you, and I know that, but mostly I want to encourage people. So even in my own life, man, I am lucky enough to have never had a lot of surgeries before, any medical complication. However, this year, I had my first 2 minor outpatient surgeries, and the recovery from those have been not fun.
Yeah.
So it's been a really trying process. I am lucky that I work remotely, even with BioNews, and as an ambassador for FARA, I can do all that from my home. So it's really convenient. So I'm not outwardly expressing that I am having a lot of difficulty. But the truth is that medically, it's been a long road, and I do believe I'm gonna recover soon and being a little more independent like I was before. But until then, it's really trying. It's really sucky being stuck in your house all the time and not even able to go to the gym or ride a bike. But that's the cards I have to deal with right now, and I'm still looking up. I'm still hoping for the light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, I'm not I try not to get me down too much.
Yeah.
So at times it does, and you know this because I'll text you when I'm having a bad day. I think that's everyone, and I think that
Yeah.
everyone goes through times of ups and times of downs, and that.
Absolutely. I like having those I don't know that I like having those conversations, but I think the point is that everyone can relate, and it's refreshing to hear that someone you're walking through this journey with is having a tough time, because you may have been having a tough time. I may have been having a tough time a couple days ago, and then we can both talk about it and both relate to each other. And so I think it's a really important part of going through this together is discussing all the really tough things that might be happening in life.
Yeah. Yep. I agree totally. It's like we're both genuine, man, and I think our relationship allows it to be genuine with each other, so we can talk about the highs and talk about the lows, and unfortunately, that seems to be pretty rare. We want to put on a facade of being strong all the time. I know I do.
Yeah.
That isn't quite authentic. Yeah, we like to be hopeful and we like to always look for the positive outcome, but we're not always thrilled to be where we are.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the more we keep that to ourselves, the more it shows people's untruths and likely causes others to keep their hard stuff to themselves. And it's harder to find freedom in that. Whether it's within yourself or with friends, or feeling confident in what you do have available to you, or what limitations or abilities you do have. When we're able to confide in one, two, or even just talk about it openly online, I think it helps turn the page not only for ourselves, but for other people as well. Like you said, FA sucks at the end of the day. Like, we'd love to not deal with it. But since we are dealing with it, let's be honest about what we're up against, so that other people also find some freedom in what they're feeling and the frustrations they're having.
Absolutely, dude. That was a beautiful point. I think that people want to be able to relate to whatever you're going through. So
Yeah.
if you only talk about the highs and being at the peak of the mountain and everything is great, then people will feel a lot less than you.
For
People
sure.
will be like, man, I wish I were more like, Sean Bombsark is
Yeah.
everything to you. But if they see, I'm like calling you out.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
they're-
especially younger folks, right? That maybe haven't experienced the world and they're easily, I don't want to say tricked, but their minds are just moldable. And if all they're seeing is everything is great for everybody else, but not them, it makes it hard to get out of bed.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. That rings so true to me because, in high school, that's what I felt I was. That, man, why are things so difficult for me? It shouldn't be, this hard. Is something wrong with me? But if I could look at others who maybe, outside my range of my circle, who were going through the same things I was, and, experiencing the hard times and not being defeated by them, I think that would be a lifeline for me.
Matt, we know it's hard. We know there's stuff about life that we'd rather not deal with. We know you talk about the New York Times article, "What a Dream Come True," finally publishing your children's book. Is there anything else besides New York Times, besides your book, that you feel proud of in your life?
In the world of rarities, in the world of buffet, I think there aren't many voices. There aren't many people living in the space that try to encourage people to not give up and move forward. I think you two are prime examples of that, but I think that you're rare. I think that it's pretty uncommon to find people, singing the same song as we do. So I am proud to be a part of that. Looking forward, do I see myself any other peaks that I want to hit? Not personally, but I would love, like you both, a solid cure for FA even. Just something to look forward to that. So personally in my life, no more than normal, grow in your job and get more success that way. But no big mountaintops I'm looking to climb right now. I just have my eyes on a cure or more treatments for FA to help the process.
Nice. Well, and as you continue to foster community, and obviously, like, that work is never done, but it's a really noble cause to build community, and we're all in that cause, and we all recognize the benefits of building community and relating to other people, as we were talking about before, and we wish you the best in continuing that amazing work.
Well, appreciate it, man, and thanks you, man. I'll be a big fan over here.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Sean, I loved that we got into being vulnerable. It's hard to put your finger on how to do that sometimes. But when we're pointing at, trying to express the specific struggles or challenges of somebody with the rare disease and relating to that specifically, I feel like it sort of identifies a way to be vulnerable.
There's no substitute for authenticity. Me, I'm careful not to be vulnerable to the extent of I always talk about my issues. There are some things that don't need to be discussed in the break room at work. But I still find value in being authentic and being realistic without being a Debbie Downer at the same time.
Yeah, and I loved being able to talk about that with Matt and hear a little of his perspective about that subject.
Yeah, he's a good dude for sure.
All right, Sean, let's jump into thank you notes. Both of us realize the power of gratitude. Who do you have to thank today?
I'm saying thank you to one of our executives at work. He's our chief operating officer. Chris Carpenter has been with the company for, I don't know, probably almost 4 decades.
Oh.
But he's the energy behind the company and our culture. He's very high energy, very much the kind of person that believes the world is his oyster, right? He can do whatever he puts his mind to. He's a self-improvement junkie, and he's always looking for ways to get better, not only for himself and his family, but for his work and his areas of responsibility, which is the entire company, in a sense. Anyway, several years ago, I reached out and I'm like, hey, can I meet you for breakfast and pick your brain? And I think I talked about that on the podcast, and I wrote about it when I was doing a column with FA News. Well, I did that again recently. I reached out and said, hey, can I steal 30 minutes? And he invited me to lunch, and we just sat for probably a little more than an hour just talking about life, what's important to me, some of the stuff that's happening in our company and the growth that we're experiencing. And the whole idea of the agenda was to share a few things with them in terms of what I hope for long term. And he was just a lot of fun to hang out with and encouraging. Like, there's nothing earth shattering. And I don't really believe that I have some special connection with him. I think that's the way he would do it with any employee that asks.
Yeah.
So the fact that he carries himself that way reinforces my belief that I work for a great company run by great people. So I'm saying thank you to Chris for carving out time and giving me a little bit of himself.
That's wonderful. I love that. When a leader is so accessible like that.
Yeah,
great.
For sure.
Sean, I've talked about my neighbors several times, constantly on this, and how they're always helping me out. So last week, it was real cold outside, and my garbage was getting to the top. So I took it out, tied it up, and I put it on the porch. And I was like, all right, I'm going to take this out in the morning, just because I was kind of staging it to get it ready to go out. Well, I go out there in the morning, and it's gone. I'm like, what? And so I assumed someone took it. So I was like, all right. Few days later, I don't know, a week later, I do the same thing. I go out in the morning, and it's gone once again.
Wow.
And so I thought I knew who it was. So I texted that person this weekend, and I was like, hey, thanks for taking my garbage, if that was in fact you. And she's like, it wasn't me. So my thank you goes out to the mystery person who's taking my garbage out.
Okay.
A lot of people, go on a walk and they walk by my place and maybe they just look up, and I know a lot of people, and a lot of people have helped me out.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, I'll just grab that. So anyway, really nice. I have an idea, a couple other ideas of who it might be. So I'm going to ask around. But anyway, for now, I just really appreciate it.
I wonder if they're like, oh, sweet, I'm happy to help. Or if after the second time you did, they're like, Are you kidding me? You're taking advantage of our services or, our billing. Like, maybe to them it's frustrating because your trash is an eyesore on the porch.
Yeah, that's very true.
Or maybe they're worried about rodents coming, squirrels or possums or whatever.
All right, I guess I'll ask around, and if someone scolds me for doing it, I'll know not to do that anymore.
Stop doing that. Yeah. Well, of course, we'll add a thank you to Matt for coming on, giving us time today in the midst of his recovery. As I shared, Matthew, we're thankful for you and your voice and your time today. We encourage you to check out our show notes where you can find links to some of Matt's work. Please share the show with a friend if you're liking what you hear. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We look forward to talking at you again next week. Until then, keep living with urgency.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to stay connected.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player.